I'll tell you what is consistent, though. Every Wednesday morning, God bless him, former Congressman Fred Grandy and his much better half, Mrs. Fred, make some time for us. They are following the creeping Sharia situation, the rise of Islamic extremism here in this country. And every Wednesday morning, we're just thrilled to bring him in here and get an update. And this is no exception. Mr. and Mrs. Fred, good morning.
Good morning.
Ah, beautiful. I love it when a plan comes together.
We don't really have to rehearse that anymore.
It's right here.
Have you tried using that at parties and other social gatherings?
We don't get invited to many parties anymore, thanks to being on your show. But, you know, we're true to our friends.
Well, and we appreciate it. We'll have you over to the house someday.
Okay.
All right. I like that.
We won't hold our breath, but in any event. Listen, today,
yes.
Speaking of how things are heating up, there's a story that I hope will be heating up because it essentially indicates that an old friend, or maybe I should say an old acquaintance in the jihadist movement may be back on the street. And I will yield to my distinguished life partner for some details and then fill in.
All right, let's take a listen.
Jeff, this is one of those uncanny stories again. Now, let's start with this. You remember mobster John Gotti?
Sure.
Godfather of the New York Gambino family, went to prison for life in the early 90s. Do you recall federal prosecutors trying to spring Gotti from prison early because he was a good Catholic or something? No, of course you don't.
No, certainly not.
No, of course you don't. But jump to 2011, and now we have federal prosecutors going to bat for the convicted criminal that many consider to be the godfather of the Muslim mafia here in the United States. His name is Abdul Rahman al-Moudi, a U.S. citizen and a top Muslim Brotherhood operative arrested in 2004 at Heathrow Airport for being Muammar Gaddafi's bagman.
Wow.
Al-Moudi was caught red-handed, you probably remember this, with hundreds and thousands in cash and to assassinate Saudi Crown Prince Abdullah. But before that, al-Moudi really got around. Not only was he President Bill Clinton's Muslim advisor traveling to and from the Middle East on your tax dollars, he founded the Muslim chaplain programs, oddly still in place in our prisons and our military. Wow. And he was very fond of saying publicly that he had no doubt in his mind that Muslims sooner or later will be the moral leadership of America. And it looks like he was right, because al-Moudi has served only 9 of those 23 years that he was sentenced, and already the politically correct Muslim sympathizer Justice Department in our country is lobbying for his early release on the grounds that he is a good moderate Muslim.
Are you
I can't
kidding
go on.
me?
I have to yield to Mr.
You gotta
Fred.
be kidding me,
No,
guys.
we are not kidding.
Oh.
Jeff, I wish we were kidding, but unfortunately, this guy may get an early release. Federal prosecutors are indicating that. I will say this. This story surfaced about 2 weeks ago as just a little blurb in the AP, and it's been appallingly uncovered. Yeah. And we've been trying to shed some light on this. But I will say this. Abdul Rahman al-Moudi's reputation precedes him. Newsweek, not necessarily a right-wing screed, very early on described him as absolutely trained in the art of deception. And let me give you an example of this. Catherine mentioned that he was arrested for terrorism in 2004. In 2001, he was speaking at the prayer service at Washington National Cathedral after 9/11. This is how successful he is in the art of deception. So let's talk a bit as to why he might be released. And there are essentially 3 reasons.
Okay.
One is because he was supposedly in the pocket of Gaddafi, he may have light to shed on that deposed dictator. And apparently the prosecution document that is still under seal says that such reductions in sentences are only allowed when a defender provides substantial assistance to the government. I would ask, what more is he going to tell us about Gaddafi that we don't know already?
That's
right. I'm not sure there's valuable information there. The other might be because he was so tight with the Muslim Brotherhood and was one of their founding fathers and seminal leaders, would he start to turn in groups like the Islamic Society of North America, the Council of Islamic Relations, or the Muslim American Council, which he started himself? Well, you have to ask yourself, if the Obama administration is actually extending the hand of friendship to the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, which they're now talking about doing, Why would they want to necessarily rat out a group that they're calling allies?
Right.
So that brings us to the third reason, and this is the one that I think bothers us the most. They may be doing it simply to demonstrate good faith with the Muslim Brotherhood and show, listen, we want to be full partners, and in return for that confidence, we will let this guy out.
Jeez.
About 12 years early on his sentence. This is something that people have to talk about, because
Wow.
this guy is a trained jihadist, and if he gets out on the street, look, he's not going to work for the United Jewish Appeal. All right?
Yeah, that's exactly correct.
Yeah, and
That's
he's a
right.
United States citizen, so he can't be deported.
Wow.
Okay. So this is where we are with this.
Wow. All right. Now the question becomes, I mean, you can talk about it, Mrs. Fred can talk about it, I can talk about it. For those who are listening, you think there's anything that we can actually do to make sure this guy doesn't get out?
Well, I would say start contacting members of Congress on the Judiciary Committee and Homeland Security and say, we want to know why this guy is being released.
Mm-hmm.
And don't fall behind that cover that says, well, this is a sealed document, we can't talk about it. I'm sorry. This guy, more than any other character, personifies the face of stealth jihad. And to not be forthcoming with this information, to not at least expose the story.
Right.
I mean, I think we need to do a delta on this, Jeff. I think this story needs to get out.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people would be appalled to know that a convicted terrorist is about to be released. Forget Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and the guys at Gitmo. This guy's in the United States.
Absolutely.
He's out in Florence in maximum security.
Absolutely. Well, we will do exactly that. Fred and Mrs. Fred are with us every Wednesday. Former Congressman Fred Grandy, lovely bride.